session of Parliament to commence today on 7 December 2022 and will conclude on 29 December. In all, there will be 17 sitting days and the Union Government plans to introduce 16 bills. An all-party meeting was held yesterday. The sessions of first Sherpa meeting of India's G20 presidency concluded yesterday. Global issues of inclusive growth, multilateralism and women-led development, tourism as well as the 3 S, that is food, fuel and fertilizer, were the key highlights. The Sherpa meet will conclude today. India urges Ukraine and Russia to end hostilities and return to the path of diplomacy and dialogue. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, says that India has consistently called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and an end to violence. Portugal and Morocco reached the quarter-finals of the FIFA World Cup. Portugal defeats Switzerland 6-1 in a one-sided match in the pre-quarter-finals, while Morocco beats Spain 3-0 on penalties in a huge comeback. The second ODI match will be played between India and Bangladesh today. Both the teams will clash in Mirpur. The Indian team, trailing 1-0, will enter the field with the intention of returning to the series. Good morning, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of the news. Our top story first. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, has said that India has consistently called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and has urged Ukraine and Russia to return to the path of diplomacy and dialogue. While addressing the UN Security Council meeting on Thursday on Ukraine, the Indian diplomat hoped the international community will continue to respond positively to the call for humanitarian assistance.
India has consistently called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and for an end to the violence. We have called upon both sides to return to the path of diplomacy and dialogue and also expressed our support for all diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. We believe that no solution can be arrived at the cost of human lives. Our Prime Minister has spoken to the presidents of Ukraine and Russia on multiple occasions and reiterated India's position. India stands ready to support all such efforts aimed at de-escalation.
Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj also said that children are also the most vulnerable to suffering, particularly in situations of armed conflict, and therefore need additional protection and care, adding the conflict in Ukraine is no doubt severely impacting the 7.5 million children across Ukraine.
Children constitute a third of humanity, the most important third, as they are our future. They are also the most vulnerable to suffering, particularly in situations of armed conflict, and therefore need additional protection and care. The conflict in Ukraine is without a doubt severely impacting the 7.5 million children across the country. The international community has the obligation to do its utmost to provide succor to children affected by the conflict.
Addressing the 77th UN General Assembly meeting on strengthening of the coordination of humanitarian and disaster relief assistance of the United Nations, including special economic assistance, India's Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN, R. Ravindra, gave an overview of the joint statement on behalf of India and Sweden. The ambassador also spoke on India's call for promoting coalition for disaster resilient infrastructure.
Moving forward, we need to look beyond immediate relief and rehabilitation. India's call for promoting disaster resilience of infrastructure through the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure has been receiving global attention, with many new countries adopting the CDRI Charter. Currently, CDRI's membership has expanded to include 30 countries and 7 multilateral organizations. Several countries have supported the mandate of CDRI through the commitment of technical assistance and financial resources. CDRI's strategic initiative for the small island developing states, Infrastructure for Resilient Island States, IRIS, has also been launched last year. IRIS is envisioned to be truly owned by states to achieve sustainable development through a systematic approach to promote resilient, sustainable and inclusive infrastructure.
And also updates we now get you on the G20 Sherpas meeting that concluded yesterday. We'll get you the updates now. G20 first meeting of the Sherpas. Today is the last day. The meetings will be concluded, but yesterday was the penultimate day of talks by the G20 Sherpas. My colleague Amritpal Singh gets us this detailed report from Udaipur.
Substantive conversations on key global issues of inclusive growth, multilateralism and women-led development, as well as the 3 Fs of food, fuel and fertilizer, tourism and culture were the highlights of day 3 of the first Sherpa meeting of India's G20 presidency. Tuesday marked the conclusion of all 5 substantive sessions of the Sherpa meeting in Udaipur.
Today there was a lot of discussion on issues of digital transformation. There was a discussion on multilateralism. There was a discussion on women-led development. There was a discussion on tourism and culture. So we started at about 8 o'clock. We finished now at about 5 o'clock. Whole day discussions.
6 working groups on agriculture, trade and investment, employment, anti-corruption, tourism and culture discussed ways to strengthen cooperative efforts amongst the G20 countries.
This was a really important meeting for India because they presented their priorities and they had to convince the rest of the G20 of their priorities, and they did. It was a very strong success for India to showcase their plans for the presidency. And it is a presidency of an emerging market economy, and that is really the focus of India.
It was a perfect outcome, and as we expected, India is taking this to the next level and committed to the priorities that they presented, and we wish them the best of luck during their presidency.
With this, all 5 substantive sessions held over the past 2 days of the Sherpa meeting came to a conclusion. After hectic day-long negotiations and discussions at the high table, as the sun set on the hills and forts of Udaipur, it was time for the visiting Sherpas and their delegations to come here at Shilpgram, which is the arts and crafts village in Udaipur, and witness for themselves the rural art forms of Rajasthan. The Sherpas and their delegations were captivated by Shilpgram's architecture and the diversity of Rajasthani arts and crafts that was showcased.
Well, I am really grateful for the Indian government for having organized this first Sherpa meeting, which was fantastic. We've been looking to the different perceptions and manifestations of your culture, and it's really diverse. We really appreciate this richness of the Indian culture, and particularly the one here, Rajasthan.
The delegations were also treated to an illuminous and colourful musical treat at the historic Manik Chowk of Udaipur in the evening. As the structured meetings of the first G20 Sherpas meet held here in Udaipur wound up, what was achieved was that the Sherpas were able to list out their priorities, the country priorities, thus setting the agenda. Now the negotiations will begin in the over 200 odd meetings that will be held across the length and breadth of the country. With cameraman YK Loknath, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Udaipur.
Tuesday was the third and penultimate day of the talks by G20 Sherpas, and also our correspondent Amritpal Singh talked to India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant to know what transpired on day 3. Let's listen in.
To talk about what transpired on day 3 of the negotiations and discussions of the first Sherpa meeting being held here in Udaipur, I have with me the Sherpa of India, Amitabh Kant. So what transpired first of all today on day 3?
Today there was a lot of discussion on issues of digital transformation. There was a discussion on multilateralism. There was a discussion on women-led development. There was a discussion on tourism and culture. So we started at about 8 o'clock. We finished now at about 5 o'clock. Whole day discussions. When we made the payment on digital public infrastructure, they could not believe that India has made so much of progress, that we do 7x of what Europe and America do together, 3x of what China does. So today when they came to Shilpagram, all of them are now doing digital payment. So they are amazed at what they cannot do in Switzerland, what they cannot do in America. They are able to do this on their mobile. All payments have been made on their Google Pay payment in 1 second flat. So they've done a lot of buying digitally. So I think you should record that and show to your audience on how delightful they are feeling.
Okay. So
this is what they feel is the technological pole vaulting of India.
Okay. So culture is an important aspect. One has seen this after the exquisite cuisine, the attires, the colorful attires of India, of Rajasthan. Now this visit to the Shilpagram, where they are witnessing the rural art forms.
Yeah, not only art forms, they are seeing the crafts, the craftsmen, many master craftsmen, many blue pottery. They are seeing the jutis, they are seeing the Rajasthan textiles, they are seeing marble work, they are seeing paintings, they are seeing artists. A lot of art forms, performances here. In a limited area, so much they are able to see for themselves. And they are getting a feel of Rajasthan. They are getting a complete, vibrant, colorful, dynamic, artistic, the vibrancy, the rhythm, the sound, the music. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable feel. And I think all of them will come back with their families as tourists.
Mr. Kant, as the first Sherpa meeting winds up, what would you say was achieved at this first Sherpa meeting of the G20?
We are delighted. First of all, we've been able to give them a great feel and flavor of India. We've been able to put out a very ambitious agenda. We've been able to bring everybody on board, and we've tried to set, as the Prime Minister said, a very decisive, a very ambitious and a very reform-oriented agenda for India.
All right. Thank you for speaking to us. So clearly, as the Sherpa says, what was achieved was, narrowing down on the agenda which India wishes to be a decisive one, an action-oriented one, and the underlying effort has to be a collective effort to deal with the most pressing issues of our times. With cameraman YK Loknath, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Udaipur.
The Divisional Commissioner of Udaipur, Rajendra Bhatt, said that G20 meet in Udaipur will boost tourist potential of Rajasthan. Let's listen in.
All these delegates who have come here, they are wondering what a place Udaipur is. Even they are saying it is a heaven on earth. They are clipping photographs. They are taking selfies. Half the time when they are in boat, they are themselves clicking photographs. So definitely they will just go to their countries, tell to their foreign affairs ministry, tell to their tourism industry that this is the place, Rajasthan is the place and Udaipur is the place where you will find everything. You will find lakes, you will find art, you will find culture, you will find a mixture of everything, and in a blanket you can see all the things at one place. And Udaipur as such is a destination, wedding destination. So it is already known in the world. When they will hear it from the Sherpas, those who have come here, they have visited it, so that will give them more, and it is safe, it is secure, and safety is the most important concern. So Udaipur is very safe. So these type of things, when they percolate through their own people, then tourism will definitely get a big boost.
And the winter session of Parliament will begin today and will continue till 29th of December. The session will provide a total of 17 sittings spread over a period of 23 days. As many as 25 legislative items have been identified which will be taken up during the winter session. They include Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill 2019, the Biological Diversity Amendment Bill 2022, the Energy Conservation Amendment Bill 2022, the National Nursing the National Nursing and Midwifery Commission Bill 2022 and the National Dental Commission Bill 2022. Earlier, the government on Tuesday held a meeting with floor leaders of political parties to ensure smooth functioning of both the houses of parliament. Up next, we get to some updates on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke on the attacks on the two bases of Russian airspace on Monday that killed 3 of its servicemen. Blinken said that U.S. neither encouraged nor enabled the Ukrainians to strike inside of Russia. But the important thing is to understand what Ukrainians are living through every day with the ongoing Russian aggression against their country.
Strike upon strike coming from Russia, and now trying to take out the civilian infrastructure that is allowing people to have heat, to have water, to have electricity, what we've called weaponizing winter. That is the daily and nightly reality in Ukraine. We have neither encouraged nor enabled the Ukrainians to strike inside of Russia, but the important thing is to understand what Ukrainians are living through every day with the ongoing Russian aggression against their country, and our determination to make sure that they have in their hands, along with many other partners around the world, the equipment that they need to defend themselves, to defend their territory, to defend their freedom.
Joined by Australian officials and Antony Blinken, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that the United States is not stopping Ukraine from developing their own capabilities to carry out long-range strikes. He added that the U.S. has spent well over $19 billion in providing security assistance to Ukraine and asked partners to join in procuring military aid for Ukraine. A third Russian airfield was set ablaze on Tuesday by a drone strike, a day after Ukraine demonstrated an apparent new ability to penetrate hundreds of kilometers into Russian airspace with attacks on 2 bases.
U.S. working to prevent Ukraine from developing its own long-range strike capability. The short answer is no. We're absolutely not doing that. As you've seen, we've spent well over $19 billion in providing security assistance to Ukraine. We have, in addition to that, engaged allies and partners routinely to get them to provide assistance as well, security assistance as well.
Meanwhile, the State Department said that the United States is not enabling or encouraging Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price said that we are not enabling and encouraging Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. He added that there is no confirmation on the strikes that were carried out by Ukraine. Ned Price further said that the United States has not provided Ukraine with weapons that are to be used within Russia.
We are not enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. We are not encouraging Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. Everything we are doing, everything the world is doing to support Ukraine is in support of Ukraine's independence, its sovereignty, its territorial integrity. We want peace. The Ukrainians want peace. The transatlantic community wants peace.
The United States and Russia accused each other of not being interested in Ukraine peace talks as calls grow at the United Nations for a ceasefire and diplomacy to end the war on Tuesday. Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said that we confirm our willingness to conduct negotiations and the aim would be to eradicate the root causes that forced us to start our special military operation. Nebenzia accused Western countries of not being interested in a diplomatic settlement in Ukraine because they were instead expanding deliveries of weapons to Kyiv. Ukraine's UN ambassador Sergei Kistelytsia said that Ukraine needs and wants peace more than any other country, and it is our territory that has been invaded. Moscow initially said that its mission was to disarm Ukraine so that it could not be a threat to Russia and denazify it by rooting out the leaders.
During the meeting on the Ukrainian crisis in the General Assembly, we recorded interest from a significant majority of member states to have a diplomatic settlement of the situation in Ukraine. We are reacting to this very seriously. We confirm our willingness to conduct negotiations. The aim would be to eradicate the root cause that forced us to start our special military operation, our SMO in Ukraine. This logic is something is being welcomed with understanding by most states apart from collective West and the Kyiv regime. Despite the clear military realities on ground, there is another logic. Military action must be to the defeat of Russia. Therefore, what you are seeing now is an ongoing war of the West against Russia until the last Ukrainian. This is something that leaves us no option but to continue aims of our SMO.
United Nations aid chief has said that Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure have sparked a new level of need in the war-torn country, warning that millions of people are without heat as temperatures drop. Nearly half of Ukraine's energy system has been damaged after months of systematic Russian strikes on power infrastructure, with fresh attacks carried out on Monday. Martin Griffiths, Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, told the UN Security Council that the destruction requires more support from the international community to Ukraine. He said, underscoring that loss of energy infrastructure has left millions of people without access to heat, electricity and water, with temperatures expected to plunge to below -20 degrees Celsius. Griffiths warned that more people risked being displaced by the conflict, which he said has already forced 14 million people from their homes, including 6.5 million within Ukraine and more than 7.8 million who fled the country. Donetsk came under rocket and artillery fire on Tuesday as Kryvyi Rynok was hit during a latest shelling of the city on Tuesday. The city mayor, Alexander Kalemzin, reported the killing of 6 civilians. Firefighters were putting out a blaze in the affected region of shelling. According to Russia-installed official, several targets have been hit and damaged in downtown Donetsk, including residential houses, an indoor market, shopping mall, youth center, Orthodox cathedral and other facilities. Goods on the stalls as well as a few cars parked nearby burnt down. Among those killed was a deputy of the self-proclaimed and incorporated in Russia Donetsk People's Republic Parliament. Russian-controlled DNR authorities accused Ukrainian forces of targeting Donetsk with rockets and artillery. Ukrainian side denies it, aims to harm civilian population. The World Bank has again endorsed the strong fundamentals of the Indian economy. Its latest report says India is projected to be one of the fastest growing major economies. The slowdown in emerging economies could position India as an attractive alternative investment destination. We get to more in this report ahead.
The World Bank in its India Development Update on Tuesday upgraded the forecast for the Indian economy as per its latest report. The Indian economy will grow at a rate of 6.9% in 22-23 fiscal year, up from its October estimate of 6.5% due to robust economic activities. The World Bank's India Director, Augusto Tano Kawame, praised the Narendra Modi government and said India is very ambitious and the government has done a number of things to make the economy resilient and is putting a lot of effort to make the economy dynamic.
Global growth, as you know, was fairly strong last year in the aftermath of COVID, but it is going to decline significantly this year in 2022. Forecasters anticipate that we will see a 3 percentage point or around 3 percentage point decline in global growth this year compared to last year. This has implications for all countries because we are all interconnected. In this context, the IDU, the India Development Update, titled Navigating the Storm, focuses on the spillovers from these global development on the Indian economy.
A senior World Bank economist, Dhruv Sharma, said the Indian economy is more resilient now than it was 10 years ago.
What is different about now and perhaps where India was 10 years ago? A term that August used was resilience. So we're seeing resilience in the Indian economy that has been built up over the past decade. And evidence of that is recovery after a previous crisis. India is bouncing back in some respects quicker than it did previously. Portfolio, there was capital outflows, but you can see compared to a period 10 years ago that we referred to as a taper tantrum, and also a sell-off period about 5 years ago, India has recovered quickly, left India, and they've returned to India very quickly as well over the past several months. And part of the reason for that is India has been improving its capital mix. Foreign direct investment is something that still a small share overall, but is improving over the past few years. and that helps with reducing volatility in its external accounts.
The report sees average retail inflation at 7.1% this year. World Bank expects India's GDP to slow down to 6.9% in the ongoing fiscal as compared to 8.7% in FY 21-22. The report cited tightening monetary policy and high commodity prices as factors impacting the country's growth. India is projected to be one of the fastest growing major economies. The slowdown in emerging economies could also position India as an attractive alternative investment destination. India recently overtook Britain to become the world's fifth largest economy as per IMF's projections, only after the US, China, Japan and Germany. The lead was scored during the last 3 months of 2021 and extended in the first quarter of 2022. As per SBI estimates, India will be the third largest economy by 2029. India is among the few economies to have debt lower than the start of the global financial crisis. India is leading the world in terms of digital payments. Nearly 60% of all digital payments are currently UPI based. Real gross domestic product grew year on year by 13.5% in Q1 22-23, surpassing the pre-pandemic level by 3.8%. DD India.
Alright, let's get to updates. Moving to sports now. As FIFA World Cup advances towards its end, Portugal defeated Switzerland by 6-1 in the last pre-quarterfinal match. Now with this victory in a mostly one-sided match, Portugal made its place in the quarterfinals. The last time Portugal's team reached the semi-finals was in 2006. The hero of this one-sided match was Goncalo Ramos of Portugal, who scored 3 goals, making this his first hat-trick of the World Cup. Ramos scored the first goal in the 17th minute of the match, the second in the 51st and the third goal in the 67th minute. Apart from them, 39-year-old defender Pepe scored in the 33rd minute, Rafael Guerreiro scored in the 55th minute and Rafael Leo scored in the injury time. On the other hand, Manuel Akanji scored the only goal for Switzerland in the 58th minute of the match. And the pre-quarterfinal match of the ongoing FIFA World Cup in Qatar witnessed another upswing. Morocco defeated Spain by 3-0 and cemented its position in the quarterfinals. In the thrilling match, Morocco registered its win through penalty shootout. Abdelhamid Sabiri, Hakim Ziyech and Ashraf Hakimi scored 3 goals for Morocco in the penalty shootout against Spain. At the same time, Pablo Sarabia, Carlos Soler and Sergio Busquets could not convert penalty shots for Spain, resulting Morocco to win. That's it in this edition of the news this hour. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.